Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Heaping Spoonful. Our goal with this podcast is to share the stories of the Mid-South's top chefs and restaurateurs with our listeners. I'm Kelly Bass, and I'm proud to be your host. Covering the restaurant scene is something I've done more on than off for, 30 plus years now. Most of that was doing restaurant reviews for Little Rock newspapers and magazines long before the internet was a thing, and before anyone who got on Yelp or TripAdvisor could tell you how they see and taste things, which has made it a whole different world for restaurant reviewing. But now, thanks to the folks at Benny Keith Foods Mid-South Division, I am a podcaster, and I like that better. I tell you, talking about food beats writing about food. Today, I'm very happy to welcome Rodney Slane, the owner of and chef at Grotto and Sauced, two restaurants in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, which I will tell you is one of the coolest places on God's green earth. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. So welcome, Rodney.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you very much. And I'd like to say thank you to Benny Keith and Brian Wyman for setting this up. Really appreciate it.
Oh, sure. Well, we're looking to tell the stories from folks all over, and we'll talk more about Eureka Springs later. But for those who are listening who don't know about it, you need to, because it's unlike anywhere else in Arkansas or probably anywhere. And I am excited to be sharing your story, Rodney, and the story of your restaurants with our Heaping Spoonful listeners today.
Thank you.
You are a very interesting fellow, and you have a broad range of experiences that undoubtedly all came together and coalesced to make you and your restaurants what they are today. So let's kind of start from the beginning. You're from Oklahoma. Where in Oklahoma are you from?
Well, I was born and raised really in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but we moved to the outskirts of Sand Springs. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's located out close to Lake Keystone.
Oh, cool. No, I don't know that place.
Yeah, it's a cool little town. It's we had quite a large school there, so we saw probably a big diverse crowd or group that I graduated with. So it's about and I know I'm jumping a little forward, but it's about as big as the population in Eureka Springs.
Okay. Well, some might call that big, but some might not. So.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Big for us.
So when you were growing up, I mean, was food a big part of your upbringing, or did you just eat what your mom put in front of you and didn't think much about as an art form?
Oh no, food was a love of mine. And I'll say, my mom was a chicken and dumplings mother. And let me just tell you, the chicken and dumplings were fantastic, just in case she's listening. So,
comfort food.
Yeah, comfort food. But most of my culinary upbringing came from my father. He wasn't a trained chef, but it seemed like he always exposed us to different types of food that normally at other households, you didn't get. But with every single meal, we had some kind of extravagant sauce. And at that point, I knew that cool. I just wanted to make a sauce with every meal that I ever could. But we also had these great times barbecuing. Barbecuing on the back porch was my most memorable experience. The wood, the fire, and the way it flavored all the different types of meats and vegetables. That's when I knew that love was sparked for me. So
well, that's cool, and it came to fruition later, and we'll talk about that in a bit.
Cool.
But I have heard it said that you can sometimes know pretty quickly how good a chef is by his or her sauces and soups, and so sauce was part of your. And again, not coincidental, the name of your second restaurant is Sauced.
Sure
so
is.
You told me when we talked earlier that one of your favorite family vacations as a kid was to come to Arkansas for what again, folks may not know, is world-class trout fishing on the White River. And I fish every year near Flippin. Where did your family typically go on the White? Because it's a pretty long river.
Yeah, I'm going to tell on myself a little bit here, but when I was young, fly fishing is not easy at first. You got to really sort of learn that for a while. But I started on Roaring River, which that's where a lot of younger people go. I feel like sort of shooting fish in a barrel, but it allowed me to perfect my fly fishing talent. The family would always load up every time we go to Roaring River and drive our 20, 30 minutes over to Eureka Springs, and we would dine over there and do our shopping. And then we'd run back and do all the fishing we could. And the next day we'd do the same thing. So the White River sort of came in a little after I had gotten my feet about me fly fishing. My dad didn't really feel like putting me in the stream was ready yet. So I was ready for that yet,
So how old were you when you were just a beginner at fly fishing? I mean, were you just a little kid or were you a teenager?
I was 6.
You were 6. Okay.
6 years old.
Well, wow, that's great. Well, I admire fly fishermen. I confess to being a novice who is pretty good just spin casting. But that is, so you're going there, you learn how to fly fish, graduate up to the White as you get a little more confident in your abilities. But did you ever once say, maybe I'll live in Arkansas someday, or was that the farthest thing from your mind?
Truthfully, it was a yearly family event that I just thought was the best thing. I really had no aspiration to live in Arkansas. I mean, as you've been here, it's a one road in, one road out kind of place. And being young, I just thought I was going to be a big shot in a big city somewhere. But for some reason, the magic of Northwest Arkansas and Eureka Springs, it pulled me back every single year, and the family too, really.
When did you get the idea that you might want to take on food for a profession? So your dad's a great cook, and he's exposing you to cool sauces and other exotic ingredients or different sorts of things. You go to high school. At what point did you say, I think I'd like to give culinary school a try?
Well, oh man, this might be a little bit of a story, but
go for it. Go for it.
As a young man, I had many jobs, but I kept going back to culinary. Well, at that time, I didn't know it was culinary. I was a server, I was a busboy, I was a tortilleria. I had done a little bit of everything, but I was finishing at that point. This is later in my life. I was already out of high school, and I was finishing my bachelor's in business and marketing, and I was managing on the border. I don't know if you're familiar with On the Border. It's
sure,
a Texas place, Sure. So when we would have someone call in short on the line, I would jump in. And I just knew immediately, just by jumping in, I loved the rush, and it was like a well choreographed dance, But the weird thing is at that point in time in my life, and I don't know if it's just my era and how old I am, but you were forced to go to college. I mean, not forced, but that was what everyone said. You must do this to advance. To get a good job in your life. So that's what I was doing. And it confused me. I'll tell you, it confused me so much that I didn't know what direction to go. But,
right.
At a certain point, you just sort of find your niche, what you really love. So. And
you kind of got a rush from the activity and the hubbub of the kitchen on the border, because I know that I've talked to many a chef and many a line cook too, who just say there's a certain rush about the speed at which you're working and the quality of what you're cranking out, and just kind of the camaraderie of the team.
Correct. I mean, the adrenaline alone on it really gets a lot of people. Even if your pay isn't high, that that adrenaline rush is like, well, I like to go to an amusement park and ride certain rides because you get that. It really does reflect, the same way, exactly the same way.
Yeah. So you've gotten your degree, or you're about to get your degree, and you're working at managing it on the border. So something flipped the switch and said, I got to give culinary school a shot. Was that a tough decision with the parents, or was it just something that they said, yeah, go for it, son?
At this point, everyone thought that I was doing something with my business degree anyway. So nobody was really hassling me. But I just moved. I ended up moving around numerous kitchens all throughout Oklahoma, and I thought, well, it's time for me to get out of Oklahoma. So I applied for I don't know if you're familiar with the Omni in Dallas, but I applied for a banquet chef position there, and it was so I took it. I moved, and once I got there, I was used to working on a quick fire line. This was a banquet chef. Well, I had to learn a whole new set of skills to be able to deal with 2,000 plus meals and multiple of those events a week. But it was a wonderful learning experience. And in the end, I really disliked living in Dallas so much because of the traffic that I was not used to that.
Crazy.
So working at the Omni, though, it gave me the ability they gave me the ability to get what they offered, like career advancement there. And through career advancement, they said, if you were to go back and get your culinary degree with your bachelor's in business, it would just exponentially push you further in the cooking game, the culinary game.
Sure.
So I did. That was the reason why I actually went to culinary school, because it never crossed my mind.
Well, that's pretty noble of them, actually, to be looking at you not just as a hired hand to help them crank out the meals they need to crank out to keep their guests and their banquet guests happy, but they actually had your future in mind. And so where did you go to culinary school?
I went to Le Cordon Bleu. In Dallas, actually.
Yeah, you didn't mess around. That's obviously well-known spot.
I enjoyed it a lot. There's two ways of looking at it, really. In my case, it advanced my career, and it allowed me to move up into, what they had at the time was a steakhouse, and I got to be the head chef of the steakhouse there. And that's sort of where the love of meat started for me. But there was other people in the class that you knew they were just trying to find themselves. They're just trying to figure out what they were going to do next. But yeah, I think that's along with any college or trade school these days. They just thought that
came in already. Yeah. But you came in with a lot of kitchen experience, including big-time banquet experience at the Omni, which when you said Omni, I was thinking, that's a well-known hotel there. Yes, so you came in already, well ahead of a lot of folks who were just, as you said, trying to find themselves. And I always ask culinary school graduates this, was that, obviously it was a rite of passage in terms of qualifying for bigger and better jobs, but did you learn things there that you put in practice still? I mean, did you learn skills you didn't already know?
100%. I'll tell you, after going to culinary school, I found you sort of find what your love is. Some people are baking. Some people come in and they just want to be able to learn how to manage a kitchen or how to make menus, for catering, of that nature. But I really took to the butchering class. I loved learning about the mussels and how to trim them down, prime forms to ready to be on your plate. I thought that was the bee's knees to me. I loved all the other classes, but learning those things, I just felt like I could go out in the wilderness and survive, if that makes any sense.
Well, it does. You don't just know how to kill it. You know how to cut it up and cook it.
Yeah.
But, exactly. And in a world of varied taste in people, you still can't go wrong with being able to cut and cook a great steak or pork chop or other game or whatever. So that's cool. So I guess then you went back to the Omni, who had been kind enough to tell you need to go to culinary school, and you were the chef in their steakhouse.
Yes, sir. Of course. That in itself was, well, it all led into, hey, you love this meat career, and you have a knack for it. I mean, whether it was breaking down fish or a full side of a cow or a suckling pig, I didn't really have a problem with it. I just became that teacher, that person that really helped everyone through the lower ranks and learning. Sure.
The wealth. And so, and again, you have a lot of twists and turns along the way to doing what you're doing now. But as I told you, reading your bio on one of the websites about your restaurants, it kind of sounds like something out of a movie. So I'm going to quote here: A rising young chef in restaurants frequented by the world's rich and famous. And then you were seeking fresh local ingredients in exotic locations around the globe as a private chef on luxury yachts. Damn, son, those both sound fun. And so tell us, the restaurants were associated with a resort, right? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The stepping stone to that was I decided I wanted to venture a little further, and at that point in time, I was going through a pretty difficult divorce, so I wanted to reinvent myself, and the Breakers in West Palm Beach, Florida, offered me a position to open a new restaurant called HMF. They'd given me a position as chef brigade there, which they were just in the beginning stages of building their menu, costing everything out. So I really got hands-on experience from the lowest common denominator of creating the menu and the position I came in at to a full functioning restaurant that you could be proud of. It was awesome. It was awesome. But in that atmosphere, I got to work with a lot of outstanding chefs and was taught a whole lot there. And I received it. What happened was they told me in Florida, the big money is made on private yachting. And that next week, I went and signed up for what they call an STCW. And those are your certifications, life-saving certifications that you have to take to get on the water and be a chef.
Yeah. Besides cooking for people, you got to be willing to save them, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I was already so nervous. I didn't know if I could cook. And in this instance, you cook for at least 20 to 30 people, depending on the size of the boat or the yacht. But it was challenging to say the least.
Sure, and high expectations too among the folks who were rich enough to be cruising around on yachts.
Yeah, that was the biggest scare. I mean, it mostly taught me about really time management, because when you're cooking for that many people, and you got to remember, you've also got a crew on there, and the folks that are either renting the boat or own the boat, they do not want you cooking the same thing for the crew, so right. It meant that I had at least 4 different meals a day just for the crew and the passengers. So I was just stuck in the galley most of the time, to tell you the truth.
Sure. Cranking it out. Yeah, I'm sure it was, filet mignon and lobster tail for the guests and hamburger helper for the crew or something.
Yeah, and before you got on the yacht, it wasn't necessarily that you got to go provision on all the islands. There's a few times that I'll tell you about that were wonderful that we got to go on the islands, but it was more about you submitted depending on how long the tour was. Let's just say it was a month long that you would go out. You would submit a month long menu, that you had to adhere to, really, because most of the time, a lot of those people have some kind of allergy, or they don't, there's the specific things they won't eat. So you didn't diverge from it unless you were yelled at to diverge from it. So.
And you had to, supply chain management. You're out for a month, and you got to make sure you got enough stuff to keep them fed, unless you're restocking. And you said you had some cool chances to stop in some ports of call and get some native type ingredients. Yeah.
Well, I got to take part in this charter that it was he's an oil tycoon, and he wanted fresh lobster. We did have lobster, but we had frozen lobster. So he wanted fresh lobster. But this particular trip, we were in Istanbul. And I'll tell you what, I couldn't figure out the language barrier well enough to not get ripped off. So
sure.
We got to do an adventure onto the island, and island Turkey, really, but got its own little outcrop. But it was difficult in most places to really not get ripped off unless you had somebody speaking the language with you. Most of the time you can find English speaking people, but it didn't always pan out that way.
Well, those folks also knew you were about to get back on a boat and go off, and so they knew
come back the next day and scream at you. Yeah, They knew somebody's money sent you. You didn't have it.
Right. So if you're shopping in Istanbul, then you've done, I guess, a Mediterranean cruise with these folks.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Most of the charters I went on, I tried to stay close to Florida. That way, if I had to get home in an instance for any reason, family, anything, we stayed around the Virgin Islands and the Bahamas, things like that. Right. But there was few cases we got to go further and do some cooler things. My favorite yachting experience was, I don't know if you're familiar with Nolan Ryan.
Of course, 7 no-hitters.
Yeah, he was my baseball man. I got all his cards and everything. So it was funny that I got the chance to be on his boat, but I had cooked for him at the Omni. He had a villa there, and he knew of me, so he requested me being on his boat, and I got to be second hand on the boat, second to the chef. But it was still a great experience, and I'll tell you what, the first time that you get taken out to a yacht on a helicopter, oh my God. I thought it was so cool, but I was so scared when I stepped off of that helicopter. All I wanted to say is Bond, James Bond, but I was shaking like a leaf, and I dropped all my stuff, and I thought, oh my gosh. But that was my first experience of thinking I was cool.
Well, I can see why you would. I'm a big baseball fan. I remember turning on the radio and hearing he was pitching his 7th no-hitter and pulling into this little bar in Little Rock, and they were watching like a Gunsmoke rerun, and I told them to turn it over to Nolan Ryan, and by the end, we were all cheering for – he was probably 40-something by the time he got his 7th no-hitter. Plus, I love the time he beat Robin Ventura's ass on the –
oh, yeah.
When Ventura charged the mound, so – all right. Well, this is so fun. We're going to need to take a short break here on Heaping Spoonful. We'll be back in just a bit with Rodney Slane, owner and chef at Grotto and Sauced restaurants in the resort town of Eureka Springs, Arkansas. So hold on just a minute, folks.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, welcome back to Heaping Spoonful and our chat with Chef Rodney Slane. So how does a man who's gotten a helicopter ride out to a yacht to cook for Nolan Ryan give that up? How did you say, well, I'm tired of jet setting around the Caribbean and sometimes the Mediterranean. I think I need to stay on land for a while.
Well, dreams. I just kept on dreaming of having my own something. I didn't really know what it was. In my head, I had grand ideas. But, you know, at this point in time, I can't even tell you. I'd been cooking for, I'm going to say over 20 years, 25 years. And
Wow.
I was just getting burned out. You get that way, you know, your hands start hurting from doing everything. You think there's something better out there for you. You never know. But essentially, I really wanted my own place. But I had trouble pulling the trigger. You know, I don't know how to really to explain that. I had to just take what I learned, and I really wanted to convert that into something that I can share with the rest of the world, you know? And
Sure.
On top of that, I decided that I was going to come home and visit family, which was in Oklahoma at the time, for Thanksgiving. And I hadn't realized that the umpteen odd years I had been in Florida, I'd missed all the seasons. So,
right. Yeah.
You know, you don't get a cold down there with the snow, and you don't get a lot of things that you get used to living in, you know, the Midwest. So I heard when I was there, we got the update that there was going to be a horrific snowstorm, and I thought, this is exciting. Oh my gosh, no! So I
snow in Palm Beach.
Yeah, I had a little epiphany that maybe, just maybe, I might want to come back. So that was where everything started to turn for us.
And what was your first venture after you left the private yacht business?
Let's see. My family actually, they were the ones that had the first venture. They came to Eureka Springs and found some Airbnbs overnight. They're called Eureka Zen. And I decided, gosh, let me lay down my knives for a little while and come and help get this started. I'd love to be around family. And Eureka Springs, you said? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
This is like,
love that place.
Right? It's like magic keeps pulling me back here, and here I am getting ready to, in my adult life, move back to Eureka Springs. So I didn't really know how it was going to go, but I knew that they needed some help, and I'd be happy to come and help run it for them. Take a little break.
So these weren't B&Bs, these were Airbnbs. So these were like rentals by the day or night or week or whatever.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, they're standalone houses, so you get your own kitchen, everything in them.
Sure.
But yeah, they called me. I don't really know. Maybe it was just the fact that I just wanted to start cleaning toilets instead of cooking food. I don't know.
So you just helped whip those places into shape and make sure they were ready for guests to start renting, and just did whatever it took, for whether you may have had a hammer or a wrench in your hand and pliers instead of chef's knives. Yep.
Correct. And, you know, I mean, starting a business like that and going through and having my business degree in marketing, I knew that I had something to lend. I could at that point in time, you know, social media was still just coming around, you know, and it wasn't the sickness that we have today, but
yeah,
you know, and I thought, if we could get this thing online and we could really market it, it was going to be a viable business. It would be really good for the family.
Yeah, that's super. Yeah. And, I mean, again, my wife and I do Airbnb or VRBO, you know, most places we travel, because we like having our own spot and not having to cruise through a hotel lobby and go up an elevator with people we don't know and book ourselves. So that's really neat. So I guess you helped the family get those units up and running and renting. And then I guess after a couple of years, you said, hey, it's about time to get back in the game. And so was that the particular time when Grotto came about, or was there something in between?
Not really. You know, I hadn't cooked professionally. I don't know. It was probably, it was a good few years. I mean, I had done some one-off caterings in town, and everyone really praised the caterings that I did, but I still was, No, I thought I had found a different niche for me, and I was gonna back off, but that niche and then the burning sensation of constantly wanting to start my own restaurant, and the idea still in the back of my head, and the notebook full of all the stuff I had learned. I had trouble not dreaming about it and not wanting to always look for the perfect establishment for me to go, you know?
Sure. So the location, so then you did find a spot, a really cool spot, it looks like, on Center Street in the heart of Eureka Springs, and open Grotto. What year was that? Do you remember the year that you mentioned?
Yeah, it was roughly 2015. Okay. And to tell you the exact date, I'm sorry, I don't know why.
Oh, that's fine.
Yes, the year 2015 is when I found.
Right.
It was in the Nelson Building, which is right downtown on Center Street and shares the upper entrance with Spring Street. And so it was multiple layers within the building. And he gave me a tour, and first tour we walked in, and in the middle layer was a huge stage, a real old it was pre-70s rebuilt stage. The building had burned down, I believe, in the 50s, but they rebuilt it in the 70s. So it had a great stage in there. And then he took me downstairs into the basement, which it was a rock outcropping, and it led into a cave, which this cave also has a constantly running spring going through it. I thought, this is awesome. But everyone looked at it as a wet basement. Nobody wanted it. And I thought, I want this. I can do something with this. Yeah. So at that point in time, we were excited that I had found something. I think it was going to cost a little bit of money to get it going, but it didn't matter to me at that time. I was excited to get back to cooking because I haven't done it professionally in, like we said, 2 to 3 years. So.
Right. So the name is Grotto Wood-Fired Grill and Wine Cave. So the wood-fired approach, was that just based on what was available what made sense for the spot, or did that just take you back to your love of cooking meat over a wood fire? Well,
okay. So my whole idea that for the last 6 years was built around an open flame cooking kitchen. And this was a little space that I took, so I didn't really know how I was going to do that. So I had to engineer my hood vent to collect all the smoke coming from just the wood itself.
Right.
But it it sort of spawned with my idea was based around a European tapas restaurant. That's really what I was focused on. The steaks and everything came a little bit afterwards, but I really wanted to give people something that would fill them if they got a small plate. It wasn't really like an appetizer. There was always enough to fill you. And I was hoping that people would get 4 to 6 plates, just as you would in a tapas place. But the name Grotto actually, it didn't come about really quickly. We sat around and pondered what the heck are we going to call this place? And I looked up what a wet cave in the dictionary meant, and it said grotto. And I thought, that's it right there.
Yeah, I found it. So also, it looks like besides the wood-fired action that your smoker is important to you there at Grotto, and we'll talk about sauce later. So you smoke things too there.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, everything is, and this is going back to the love that I found for the wood, the flavoring the wood gives the meat or vegetables. And I think I love the old traditional process of smoking. Everyone thinks they can smoke some meat, but you're always learning when you're smoking meat. Different sizes meat do something different for you. Different fat contents do something for you. Different woods. And we have our own land, so we go out and we harvest our own wood. We use mostly hickory and red oak, but we know that our stuff is seasoned perfectly. Anything that's not seasoned very perfectly, you've got some other issues like darkening of meat, or your wet wood smokes too much. You just don't know those things until you get to that point. But we smoked probably about 30% of our menu. And, of course, I was constantly smoking things for my family and my friends. Finally, they said, enough's enough. No more smoking. You just start the restaurant, for God's sake. Just go start a barbecue place, because that's what I wanted.
Right, smoke for the rest of the folks. So I looked at your website, and of course I saw the fabulous menu, the small plates and the main course plates. And I saw that brisket. Oh, like on a buttery brioche. Oh man,
oh yeah,
horseradish sauce, right? Mayo or something. Oh, it looked great.
Just a version of a French dip is what we call it.
Yeah. Oh, it looks fabulous. But I didn't see a wine list. So, but obviously, if you're calling it Wine Cave, you must have a focus on wines. Is it a theme or a kind of wines, or is it pretty much a broad selection? Is it mostly bottle, or can you get some decent ones by the glass?
Okay, so the reason why you don't see a menu of the wine list is we have quite an extensive list, and we rotate through different stuff about every month. But being that the cave is conducive to being able to store red wines, we've got a lot of reserve stock of the really great brands, some duck horns and things that we keep in our wine cave. But what we're really focused on, and we've seen a big trend change in the last 3 years, is people are looking for something affordable that they know. They're looking for something that, isn't $50 a bottle, which, a wine connoisseur would think, well, that's not too bad. That's pretty cheap.
Right.
But I think what we try and do is we're trying to find what works for the masses, what you feel comfortable coming in and ordering, because it changes so often right now because there's so many different distributors out there, and they're pushing great wine. But if we were to stick with the reserve stock and our $100 wines, it just seems like society has changed just a little bit, and just enough that if we offer something that you can readily get pretty available in most stores, it's helped us. It's helped us become more of that family-friendly type place instead of just the snooty wine bar,
Well, you're smart, and I've got a lot of friends in the business who say I'd rather make a decent margin on a lower price bottle and sell 10 of them in a night than to have a huge, margin on a higher dollar one and sell one in every week. So,
absolutely,
and it's just you want wine to be approachable and people to expand their horizon. So that's cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say this now. I won't save it for the end, but when I was working on getting ready for this talk, my wife and I said, God, it's probably been 3 years since we've been to Eureka Springs. So we love the place. We'll talk more about it in a little bit, but we're coming. Just get ready. I'll let you know I'm coming, and then I'll come in there and check out your kitchen and do all that stuff. And have a really nice glass or bottle of wine. So your website talks about Grotto as kind of a total sensory experience, and it sounds like with the cave and the operative spring and all that, it doesn't just sound like a place to pop in and eat. So tell us kind of the general vibe that led you to call it a sensory experience and not just a place to come eat.
Well, and most of the places these are my dreams and what I see and how they should be built, and I do all the building myself as well. So
wow.
When you walk in, you get a very earthy feel. With the rock, we have mixed some of the hardwood, unfinished wood is all over the walls. We also have great. It's like about I would say an 8-foot wine bottle chandelier hanging over our bar. So everything is done a lot with lighting, We've lit the cave. We've also got great, they're called filters, old school filters that you would get off of like a power pole. I'm not sure if you know what I'm talking about. They're like glass. They're real neat looking, and they're all over the place. All over, lit up.
Call them insulators.
Insulators.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Insulators. So we've got a lot of that type of decoration around. And we also have, we're in the Nelson building. So we have Jim Nelson. He's an artist and he does wood carvings. So we have some fantastic wood carvings all over the wall. So all that together with great service and them being able to escort you through the whole evening, your wine experience, your food experience. It really is a sensory experience. I mean, I said experience like 13 times, but it is,
it sounds like it. Looks cool, smells cool, sounds cool, and everything tastes great. So that's,
and you always, what's always cool is like the smell of smoke, like when you come into a place and then you got the meat burning on the grill and that Maillard reaction going on, you get that smell and it's like, oh, that alone, we're going to have a good night,
Yeah, for sure. So Grotto was cooking along, so to speak, and you decided to branch out and scratch that itch you've already talked about earlier, which is opening a barbecue restaurant and smoking meat for the masses.
I did.
And that is so very Arkansas. I mean, really when you think about it, catfish and barbecue are probably the two quintessential Arkansas foods. So tell us about the genesis of Sauced and how it came to be.
Well, we first, I thought that we would branch out and move just a little bit south to Fayetteville. I don't know if you're familiar with Fayetteville, but
quite familiar. Yeah.
Okay, we were located on Dixon Street, which is just roughly two blocks from Arkansas State College. That is.
No, University of Arkansas.
Yes, that's correct.
University of Arkansas.
Yeah, University of Arkansas. Sorry, I forget there's both. And
that's okay.
And we were cooking along. We were doing really well. But COVID struck and our financial security was really based on the kids. But once they took the kids away, and which I understand, but once they took those kids away, we hit rock bottom. I mean, we tried to switch to go foods, deliveries. I mean, we tried everything we could, and we just had to make the decision to pull the plug. So one day we packed all of our stuff up. Had our trailers full. We thought we're just going to put this stuff in storage and put it on the back burner. We pulled into Eureka Springs and saw that there was a building available right in front of Hart's grocery store, and asked, "Hey, what's going on with it?" And that day, I mean, we hadn't even talked to anybody else. He said, "Go ahead and move in." And I'm telling you, with dollars and cents in my pocket, we just went ahead and built it out and opened up within 30 days. Fastest build out I've ever done. And ever since then, we have been just doing fantastic. I'm telling you, Eureka Springs has, thank goodness, it has bounced back from COVID. And I don't know if it's the fact that you can't, travel by airline anywhere, but people are starting to come around to Eureka Springs again. They're seeing the magic in it and the wide open spaces. And of course you can rent your own Airbnb instead of sharing at a motel or hotel, if that's how you feel. There's just a lot for everyone here. Luckily it saved us. It saved that business.
Well, that's fabulous. And for folks who don't know Eureka Springs, there's a dichotomy really between downtown and on the highway, and the Harps and Sauced is on Highway 62, which goes through town, and also has a few attractions or restaurants that would never work size-wise or as far as what they serve downtown. But it sounds like you've got the best of both worlds, because your restaurants by crow flies or even in your car are not very far apart, but they're really in kind of different sorts of vibes of what part of town.
Yes, sir. That you're absolutely right, and I never even realized it, to tell you the truth. Just happening upon this location has changed the way I view Eureka Springs within the last year. You're right. There is a dichotomy of the downtown folks or downtown tourists even, and the 62 tourists or locals, because most locals don't go downtown. And a lot of the tourists I've met since I've been on 62, they don't go downtown either. But it's mostly a parking situation. You know, I mean, you get down there and a lot of people go, I'm not going to drive around and then I'm not going to park and walk for that long with with all my bags I just bought, or, being full from the meal. So it has shown us a whole different light of what the difference is between 62 and downtown. And it also reflects with the locals here. Over the years, I know there's always been problems, and there still is. It still is problems. It seems like, people up on 62 are the redheaded stepchild. They don't recognize a lot of the businesses up there as much as they do downtown. So, maybe in the future that'll lead me to creating some kind of a merchants group or something that helps all businesses in Eureka Springs come together, Yeah.
Sure. So what is it, just the quality of the meats that you smoke that separates Sauced from what we might consider a typical barbecue restaurant? Or how would you say if you differentiate from, it's not safe to say run of the mill, but I mean, just of a normal barbecue restaurant? What do you say is different about it?
Well, there's a few things. For one, we take a lot of pride in the wood. And I think I said this before. The wood is, since we've been at Grotto, and I've really come to experience bad and good woods and different things of that nature. And us having our own land that we're processing our own trees and drying our own wood, it is a step above most other barbecue places. We also have a purveyor called Creekstone Beef. They're phenomenal stuff. Phenomenal beef, and they've got these great programs of their wet aging and dry aging, and now they've just gotten into all the pork products. So we're pretty loyal and love our Creekstone beef. It is just a fantastic product, and a lot of people like to cook prime beef, or prime brisket or anything else. But I'm telling you that this beef that they have is, you could get the lowest choice beef, and it is, hands down, probably as good as some of the prime you'll get through Hereford or anything else. So I would have to say it is the catalyst of making it great, besides me smoking all of it. But
right. Well, I could see Creekstone beef fitting in from a price point at Grotto, but so you were able to do it and still sell your barbecue at Sauced at a decent price, even with Creekstone product?
Yes. And luckily, this also reflects on Brian Wyman, which is my food purveyor with Benny Keith. He has been with me since the day we've opened at both places, and we've had a great relationship. And what he's done for me with my beef, and especially even through COVID, beef went up. It went up so much. I thought, I'm not going to stay in business. Oh no. But he maintained keeping us alive. And I can't say enough about the gentleman. But what he did was he got us with the purveyor, the Creekstone beef purveyor, and they locked us in at some really great prices, and they've worked with us. I haven't had that, with any other.
Yeah, company. Well, having the history you had with them at Grotto, obviously, you're now a multi-restaurant customer, which means you probably couldn't have just opened Sauced and gone to Creekstone and said make this work. But that's just part of being it's kind of like a frequent flyer, except it's a frequent meat buyer program. Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, and again, you're very familiar from now. You live there and have for years, but you went there and then you came back and helped your family get in the Airbnb business. But Eureka Springs is unique. We talked a little bit about the 62 crowd, and I think I told you that in my earliest days, or not earliest, but in my days as a newspaper guy, in fact, in 1995, I wrote an article for Arkansas Times. It was on the cover, and we had the head of the Chamber of Commerce and a guy who ran an art gallery in downtown standing there with their backs to each other in Western gear with six shooters on their hips, like they were going to have a duel, because you had one group going, we need to be attracting the yuppies with disposable income who want cool art and great food and a nice place to stay. And then the other side saying, well, we got 7 million people in Branson right up the road, and we need to put a theater with a guy with a blacked out tooth and an all-you-can-eat buffet on Highway 62 and get the Branson buses down here. And it's just created this incredible environment. The other thing is people love Eureka Springs so much they care, and so they vote. And you'll have elections that come down to 1 or 2 votes, and we all know politics works better when only about 10% of people care and the rest just kind of watch. So talk about just but there's people are so loyal to Eureka Springs. They come there on vacation and they never leave. So talk about just the vibe and the people and what Eureka Springs is like for you.
Well, I mean, and I think I spoke to this a little bit before. I mean, there's something weird, or maybe it's just the water, because that's what Eureka Springs was founded on, is this healing water. It's magical. It has a draw to it. I don't, we get a lot of new people coming here, and when they walk by the shops, they go, we could do that. Let's do that. Let's just move here and do that. And you get a lot of that. Though you're right, the politics in Eureka Springs, being a town of 2,000, is very passionate. People are very passionate, and you get a lot of crossing between the locals that live within the town that is tourist based, and you need that tourism base to continue to bring more people here, to be able to financially be able to take care of the town. We've seen, since I've been here, we've seen a few different administrations go through. And it is like that still. They should be standing in the street with their guns, not loaded guns, but with their pistols back to back. That's a great analogy for it. It's more right now. I believe that the way Eureka Springs is moving is more outdoor activities, like we talked about. A lot of people don't know about the fishing here. A lot of people don't know that. Right. And it's sad, because what we need to do is we need to get the word out that, coming here means you can go hiking, you can go mountain biking, you've got the option to go fishing, floating. A lot of people I talk to, because I always floated the Illinois River when I was in Oklahoma. And I tell a lot of my Oklahoma friends that you got to come and try the rivers here, because it's beauty. It's just beautiful. I mean, breathtaking. But
it is. It's gorgeous scene.
Right. Too. Right. And we have everything. Like if you were wanting to travel by plane somewhere, let's just say Mexico, they have so many things to do, zip lining, things of that nature. We have all that here. We just got to get it marketed correctly. And that's what I think, that maybe you see a lot of the political uprising against, whoever's in office or whoever has the new idea, because there is a lot of people here that want to keep the place the way it is. And I understand that. It's historical. It needs that local love to keep it historical. But there's also a new day and age, and people are looking for stability, and that's really what Eureka Springs is to me. If you learn how to work Eureka Springs and how to be part of the community, it is all about stability. It really is.
Well, I'll tell you, Eureka Springs is the place where politics is messy because everybody cares, but it's also an absolutely fabulous place with even more fabulous restaurants, and including 2 owned and operated by Chef Rodney Slane. So thanks, Rodney, for being my guest today on Heaping Spoonful. Continued good luck at Grotto and Sauced, and don't be surprised if my wife Ashley and I pop in to introduce ourselves later this year. Thanks to all of you for listening to Heaping Spoonful today. Remember that we post new episodes the first and third Tuesday of each month, so please be on the lookout for those, and go back and check out the ones you've missed. Goodbye, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.